Let's get some yarn on those needles. This is the first step to starting your knitting project, and it's always really exciting to get going. So you should have your yarn picked out for your project, and you should know what kind of needles that you are going to use. For this long tail cast on that I'm going to demonstrate, it does not matter what type of needles you're using. You can use this for any project. It's the most general type of cast on. To start the long tail cast on, you need to measure out a length of yarn from the end to find a place where we can start, because we need to be able to work with 2 pieces of yarn. At the end of this video, I will show a tip on how to know how much yarn to measure out for your pattern. But for right now, for practice, just pull out about 12 inches of yarn, and then at that point, this is where we're going to want to make a slip knot. You take your slip knot loop, and we're going to put it on to our needle. We don't want to tighten it so tight that it can't slide easily on our needle, but we also don't want it really big and loose because we don't want it to fall off. To set up for your cast on, you're going to grab the 2 pieces of yarn in your hand. Your last 3 fingers, your middle finger through your pinky finger, are going to be gripping these yarns for you and keeping a hold of them. Your pointer finger and your thumb are going to do the fancy work. They are going to go between the 2 pieces of yarn. Then we're going to flip your hand over. This sets us up to be able to weave the needle in and out in order to get loops onto our needle. So grab your yarn in your fingers, take your pointer and your thumb and split the 2 pieces of yarn and put those 2 fingers all the way through so that the yarn is down at the base of them. Flip your hand over. You should easily be able to see that you have a V shape coming to a point between those 2 fingers. You're going to hold your needle towards the bottom of your palm. I, with my right hand that's holding the needle, also pinch the slip knot loop with my thumb and pointer finger to hold it still so it doesn't move around on me. We're going to start by putting our needle under this first piece of yarn in front of our thumb. We're going to skip the second piece, so we're going over that, and we're going to go over the top of the yarn coming from the front of our pointer finger, and we're going to go underneath of it, picking it up. Then you just simply rotate your needle so that it comes through the loop that goes around your thumb. At this point, you have a new stitch on your needle. Now we have to set up for making another stitch. To do this, we are going to drop the loop off of our thumb. So just let it go. In order to pull this tight and set up for our next stitch, you scoop your thumb underneath of this yarn that is coming from between your fingers and going to the needle. There should be plenty of space there to do this. And as you pull it, it pulls the cast on stitch that you just made snug. This sets us up just like we were before. Now we can go under the first, we can come around the top and pick up this loop and pull it through the loop that's around our thumb. Drop our thumb and set up for the next time. If you need to readjust, you can simply drop your yarn. It's okay. It's really easy. Or if you need to set it down, and now we just grab our yarn again, just like in the beginning. You put your 2 fingers through, we turn our hand over. We're ready to go again. Under, pick up that piece of yarn, bring it through, drop your thumb, and wrap the new stitch. If this is your very first time doing a cast on, your cast on stitches right now are probably pretty tight on your needle, and that's okay. With practice, you will be able to relax your tension. So I'm just going to do this a few times with a slow motion and showing what it looks like if you just keep going. It can be an awkward motion at first, but your hands will begin to remember how to do it. So let's set this up again, grabbing our yarn, sticking our 2 fingers through, turning our hand over, under, grabbing the new loop through, drop our thumb, set it up again. As you learn to cast on, you're going to notice that the bottom part of your cast on stitches, where the almost like the little knots are, so, or a braid, if you turn it over by one angle, it can kind of look like a braid. It's going to be uneven. You're going to have really tight spots, and you're probably going to have some loose spots, and it's just going to look really uneven. So what I want you to do is I want you to practice casting on over and over and over. This is going to help you be able to get a really nice edge on your knitting, because this is the very base for your project. You don't want big loose spots, and you don't want really tight spots. The really tight spots are going to make it so that it's difficult for you to knit your stitches. The really loose spots are also a potential for slipping off for that first row, and then also it just looks really messy along your first edge. So I want you to just keep practicing. You can just slip those right off of your needle and you can start again. So to measure out how much tail you need for your long tail cast on, this is what I do. I take my yarn that I'm going to be using and the needle that I'm going to be using, and I just do a little bit of measuring. This is because we use different size needles, and different size needles use a different amount of yarn. It takes much more yarn to make a knit stitch on this giant needle. It takes this much than it does for this needle. This one only takes about this much. So I figured this out along the way because I got tired of running out of my tail before I had enough cast on stitches, or with having too much waste, too much left over after my cast on stitches, especially when it was a yarn that I really liked. I didn't like having that waste. So let's say I'm using this giant needle. I do like I did before, and we just measure so that, let's see if I can get a good view here. Oh, there we go. So that there's enough wiggle room to slide it, but it's not too huge, and it doesn't have to be exact. This is just an estimation. And I do start a few inches from the end already, because you do want a little bit left over of a tail. So this is going to take about this much, and if I need 20 stitches cast onto my needle, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I would just double it to get to the point that I needed to begin. And then we are off. We've set it up to cast on our stitches. And it's as simple as that. Watch this long tail cast on video as many times as you need to. You might have to watch it at the beginning of every new project for a while, and that's okay. I sat down knitting for like a year or so, and I forgot how to set up my cast on and had to go find my book or how-to video and figure it out. But you will remember eventually, and you'll be able to get all your stitches on your needle and start a project. Now that you know how to do the long tail cast on, go over to the project page and pick out your first knitting project.